One day a week at the sawmill grind. Super Daniel, yeah, on my time.
Even with me running through the woods over the head of the helicopters and head of the drones and stuff like that.
That's a good one.
Honestly, if you can't find a little bit of humour in this case, then there's going to come a point where you crack. This is one of the most heartbreaking cases I've covered, and honestly, I've lost more sleep over this case than I have over any other case that I've looked at. So that little clip, if you've not seen the video, is the end part of a full video that is on my channel. The audio was created by Justin over on Clutch Them Pearls, and I created the video. So the link for that will be in the description section for this video. Now, in this video, in case you hadn't guessed, we're talking about Daniel. This is going to be part 1, because from just having a quick look through this interview, even though it's 7 minutes long, there is a heck of a lot going on here. There is a heck of a lot to talk about. So I've already done a video on 2 of the clips from this interview. They were the clips that were originally released before the full interview was released. So when I get to those bits, I'm just going to kind of gloss over them. I'm not going to go too much in depth, and I will add the link for that video in the description so that if you haven't had a chance to watch that video, you can hop over and check it out. So before I jump in, I just do want to give a shout out and a welcome to my new subscribers. I've seen that there's quite a few that are joining us at the moment. So welcome to my channel. Thanks for choosing to give us your time. And I say us because I realise that my channel is not just me, it's the wonderful subscribers who come back video after video and support my channel. The subscribers who leave comments, who share their opinions, who are not afraid to say when they have a different opinion to me, but the ones that do that respectfully, of course, because I'm not a fan of people who are just in it to be nasty. I also want to once again thank those people who've been doing super thanks and buy me a coffee. Your support is greatly appreciated. And while I'm at it, I might as well tell you about what else is on offer with my channel. I have a Patreon account, which you can find the link for that also in the description for this video. If you want any documents from this case, or many of the documents from the Madeline Soto case, then they are available on my Patreon for free. Basically, you can just join up for free. All you need to do is add your email address, and then you can download whichever documents you want. There is an option for paid membership to my Patreon, but it's not something that I ask of you if you are just going over there because you want documents, etc. That's just there for people who want to provide that extra support for my channel. I keep the tiers low, so I think there's a $1 tier and a $2 tier. I think Patreon's added other tiers, but honestly, even just a $1 tier is more than enough support for my channel. I'm not in this to get rich. I'm just in this to be a voice for the voiceless. And in terms of earnings from my channel, I'm more than happy just to be earning enough to be able to afford to continue doing this. And of course, as you've probably guessed by now, to also be able to continue to pamper my 3 dogs. I don't usually think to mention this, but there is also membership for my channel. I don't have a regular schedule in terms of when I post videos, but I do post videos that are members only. I add photos that are members only. And I do periodically do prizes for my members also. For my current members, I will do a prize draw coming up very soon. I know it's been a little while, so I'll make sure that there is a prize draw in the near future for members. So that's more than enough waffling, and now that Mouse has made himself comfortable in the crook of my arm, it's probably a good time to start on this video.
So what do you make of the fact that they are bringing the cadaver dogs in?
Well, I'm actually pretty happy about that because it's been about 3 months I've been asking for them, and it's just been delayed I guess till now. But I know things take time and dogs are hard to get.
Now, I did tackle that particular part in my previous video, so I'm not going to go too much into this. But I just want to point out that even at the beginning of this interview, you can see the furrows in his brow. So there is some anxiety about them bringing the dogs in. I suspect that that is because he's not entirely certain of all the areas that they are planning on taking the dogs. So yeah, this is a classic example of him basically parroting something that somebody else has said. On one hand, he's saying later in the interview that he's 100% certain that the dogs won't find anything. But here, when he's asked, what do you make of the fact that the dogs are coming in? He says, I'm actually pretty happy about that because I've been asking for 3 months. Well, you'd be kind of ambivalent. Why would you be happy about something that's not going to progress the case? If you were so convinced, wouldn't you be turning around and saying, well, actually, you know, I'd rather that they put the money into something that's going to actually get results rather than spending money on bringing dogs in. And we've heard him say before that he wanted them to bring the dogs in. So it just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. On one hand, to have been telling people, oh, well, I've asked them to get the dogs in. And then when they're saying, oh, we're bringing the dogs in, to be like, yeah, I'm so pleased that they're bringing the dogs in, but they're not going to find anything. The last part of his statement here, and it's just been delayed, I guess, until now, but I know these things take time. I suspect this is something that he's been told by the RCMP, because we've heard him say that he's still pestering them 2 or 3 times a week. This is someone who needs to know what they know, and apparently they're not telling him. And basically, translation of this, things take time, is from the RCMP perspective, it's about waiting for forensic analysis and stuff to come in, waiting for analyses of digital devices, all that sort of thing. So waiting for results to come in before they have a direction of where to look with the dogs. So it's not like things take time, it takes a while to organise the dogs. No. Because if they needed to, if they had a tip that said this is exactly where the children are, and it was a solid tip and they believed it, you can bet they'd get those dogs in pretty damn quickly. I know Canada's only had this program going for since 2016, so there's not a lot of cadaver dogs in Canada. That said, because of the cost of transporting them, because of the cost of accommodating them, accommodating their handlers, etc., it's not something that they just do on a whim. Which basically means that these dogs are not being paraded all around the country every single day. So when they are, in fact, required, it wouldn't be about the wait time. It would be about the cost involved, justifying the cost by being able to say, yes, we have a location for the dogs to search. And yes, if the forests are closed because of the risk of bushfire, or you don't call them bushfires, do you? Forest fires, then no, they're not going to bring these valuable dogs in. It takes time and money to train these dogs, so they're not going to put them at risk by taking them out into an area where there's a risk of forest fires. And trust me, having previously lived in an area that was a high-risk area for bushfires, I've seen how quickly an uncontrolled fire can take off, particularly in a hilly area. The speed that it will head up through the scrub on a hill is frightening. So definitely, if they're or if they're telling the public to stay out because of the risk of fires, there's no way they're going to risk their dogs.
So what does this say to you? Because I mean, they are dogs searching for human remains.
Well, I know that it's going to be really hard work now that there's so much vegetation in the woods, but I'm pretty happy that they're going to be able to do it. I even hope that they bring more than one dog if they have access to more than one dog.
Now, I'm going to run the whole thing through for you again at the end of the video, because there's a fair bit going on here, and there's things that you could miss in the first part. So one thing that I've noticed is that as this interview progresses, the interviewer herself is becoming more and more uncomfortable, because Daniel's not answering the questions the way that he should be, basically. He's not answering the questions in a way that shows any concern for Lily and Jack. And she's basically coming back at the same thing, trying to get a response from him, or trying to get the correct response from him, and he just doesn't get it. Instead, he's actually telling us what his fears are here. So I should probably point something out for those of you who perhaps this is the first case that you're following. Now, I'm not 100% sure that I'm attributing this to the right person, but I believe it was Chris McDonough who has stated in one of his videos at one point in time that basically there is essentially like a handout that's been created by FBI, which many law enforcement agencies will share with media outlets. And basically what it is it gives suggestions of questions to be asking family members when children are missing. The reason I'm saying that I'm pretty certain this comes from Chris McDonough is because that's basically what his specialty was before he was retired. He's a retired law enforcement officer, and he was basically on child abductions. That was his main thing. So he's an expert on these sort of things. So this reporter is doing a really good job in that not only is she asking extremely open-ended questions, but the questions that she's asking are almost ambiguous. And I don't think that is intentional. I don't think that is poor journalism. I think it is basically to see if he actually knows what the expected answer here is. To see what his actual motivation is, to see what's going on in his head. So she's asking him, what does this say to you? They are dogs that are searching for human remains. Now, you may have noticed that when Belinda first posted on Facebook that the dogs were coming, if you read through the comments section under her post, a lot of people were saying things like, "I'm thinking of you. Stay strong." Why is that? Because when someone is looking at the prospect of investigators bringing in human remains detection dogs, that is an acknowledgement by investigators that they are fairly certain that these children are deceased. That is an acknowledgement that they believe there is a chance that they are going to find the remains of these children. So that should be the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the question over, what does this say to you? You know, they're dogs searching for human remains. But that's not a concern for Daniel. He doesn't give the expected answer that basically this means that Lily and Jack are probably deceased. In fact, he doesn't even refer to Lily and Jack at all. His first thought is, I know it's going to be hard work now that there's so much vegetation in the woods. And that was after a bit of a slow start. Pauses in between, like, I know that. And then he takes off at rocket speed. It's going to be hard work now that there's so much vegetation in the woods. He's figured out what he's supposed to say, or what he thinks he's supposed to say in his head. Because Lily and Jack aren't at the forefront of his thoughts. If he was genuinely worrying about where Lily and Jack were, if he genuinely had no idea where they were, had no idea what happened to them, he would not be jumping straight to this conclusion of, well, I know it's going to be hard work for them because there's so much vegetation. I mean, when I read Belinda's post, my first thought was, I hope they find the children. And from that, I went on with, it would be heartbreaking, but at least it would give some closure. And then I started thinking about the lack of experience of the Canadian dogs, and I started worrying that the children might be out there and they may not find them if the dogs and the handlers lack the experience, or if they've simply not identified the right areas to search. But we get none of this from Daniel. And for Daniel, you know, he is part of that case. You would think if he genuinely was innocent, which I've never heard that word come out of his mouth, but if he had nothing to do with this, if he genuinely cared about Lily and Jack, if he genuinely wanted to see them found, you would expect some of these things to be said by him, not this comment about, oh, it's going to be hard work because of all the vegetation. And then we get that classic example of someone basically saying the opposite of what they are feeling. And I'll explain in a minute why I know that that's what he's doing. But it's that classic example of showing concern or enthusiasm over something that you really do not feel that about. So, you know, consider you have a work colleague that you don't like, and you spend every day working your butt off to pretend that actually you really like this person, and to hide the fact that you just cannot even stand the sound of their voice. You know, maybe they're just super, super arrogant, or they lack empathy, or they're forever gaslighting people. And, you know, we've all had people like that in our workplaces And usually those sort of people are ambitious to boot. So imagine you have this work colleague that you utterly detest. And they know how to suck up really good with the boss. So they get themselves a promotion, or they get themselves extra responsibilities, or, you know, something that everybody else thinks, well, that sucks. But you know what is expected within the workplace. So you go up to them and you're like, oh, well done. You really deserve this. I'm so pleased for you. While at the same time you're thinking, I hope you screw up and get demoted in 6 months. And honestly, Daniel's starting with, I'm pretty happy. That's almost like the classic line that you hear in these kind of situations, because you're trying to pull out the emotion that you don't really have. And instead of having all these other descriptions for, wow, I'm so thrilled, or, oh, you know, that is the best news I've heard all week. You know, something that really sounds genuine. Your brain says, I have to sound like I'm happy. And that's what you blurt out. I'm so happy. Or I'm pretty happy. Of course, that on its own doesn't mean that someone doesn't mean it. You've got to listen to the whole statement there. So he says, I'm pretty happy that they're going to be able to do it. I even hope that they bring more than one dog if they have access to more than one dog, sorry. It's that going over the top that's the giveaway. Adding in extra, in this case it's not extra platitudes, but just going too far with the gushing, going too far with the enthusiasm. Despite his claims that he's glad that they're bringing in the dogs, you can see throughout the interview the furrows in his brow. He's trying to talk the talk. You know, he's pleased that they're bringing the dogs in. And he's trying to also say, well, he's 100% certain they're not going to find anything. But his body language, and in fact some of the language he's using here, tells a different story. He's crapping his pants. Even if he knows that the dogs aren't going to find anything on his mother's property, he does not know where else those dogs are going to search. And that's a concern for him. And when you listen to his answers, you could be forgiven for thinking that he's forgotten that Jack and Lily even existed. You could be forgiven for thinking that he can't remember what the investigation is about, because that's not the focus of any of his answers. Now, what I noticed in terms of his body language here, when he starts talking about it being hard work for the dogs, you get deeper furrows in the brow as he says hard work. Same again when he's talking about them hoping they'll bring more than one dog. And as he's saying more than one dog, the furrows deepen. He was actually concerned about the possibility of them bringing more than one dog, because it's going to make it more likely for them to find the remains. The thought of the dogs working hard, essentially doing their job, and maybe finding the children's remains, was a concern for him also. And when he makes that statement, I even hope that they bring more than one dog, as he's saying, I even hope, he shrugs. But it's a one-sided shrug. He's showing contempt. He's showing contempt for the RCMP for actually bringing the dogs in the first place. He's actually hoping that they don't bring more than one dog. Now, throughout the interview, he's holding pretty much the same pose. And I've seen that he seems to do this in every interview, and I think this is part of his masking strategy, because he really does do a lot of masking, hiding his facial expressions, shutting them down. And I think the way he's positioned himself is also an attempt at masking. You have this 7-minute interview and he does not shift his position. All you see is a change in what the muscles are doing. So he's standing there, he's trying to give this impression of a relaxed stance. At first glance you would think that. He's standing there, he's got one leg crossed over the other leg, you know, that crossed leg kind of, there's no threat here kind of pose. And he's got one arm resting on the bench. But he's not as relaxed as you would think. So when he's talking about them bringing the dogs in and how he hopes that they bring in more than one dog, when he gets to the point where he says if they have access to more than one, as he says if they have access, you can see him becoming more upright and he grips the bench. On a subconscious level, his brain has prepared him for flight. The thought of them bringing in more than one dog and having a greater chance of finding the children, or having one dog to basically follow up if the other dog misses something, that's something that he's nervous about. So on a subconscious level, his brain has gone, prepare for flight.
So what are you happy about? What do you hope this will bring?
I would just like to see maybe the social media speculation theories and accusations, maybe they're not going to stop, but slow down, because at this point they're getting ridiculous.
Okay, here's what I don't get. These people are paying really close attention to social media. We've seen Janie and Daniel are both adapting their language and their behaviours based on what is being said in social media. And yet, they're still managing to dig themselves deeper holes. You'd think that they would have figured out by now that they're just not going to win. When you're not being genuine, trying to adapt your behaviour and adapt your language to fit what you think would make you sound genuine, it's just never going to work. Because there's always going to be those tells. And yet, these people keep coming back for more and digging themselves a deeper and deeper hole. And now he's complaining again about social media. So I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. She keeps circling back and trying to help him out here. She's trying to give him the opportunity to give the right answer. In other words, she's trying to give him the opportunity to actually talk about Jack and Lily. This interview isn't supposed to be about him. It's supposed to be about Jack and Lily. But he doesn't once say their names. He doesn't once refer to them. Or at least not at this point. Right now, it's all about how people perceive him. So she's circling back, trying to give him this opportunity. She keeps giving him new questions that are still basically aiming for the same answer. I mean, she's doing everything she can, short of hitting him over the head with a rubber mallet. But he just doesn't get it at all. So she's asked him, what are you happy about? Because he's just said, he's happy that the dogs are coming. What do you hope this will bring? Now, up until Durwood came along with his tall tales, the story that they were putting out there, Daniel, Janie, and Malaya, who's totally silent now, was that the children had wandered off into the woods and gotten lost. So the answer to this shouldn't be too hard, should it? Why are you pleased that the dogs are coming? What are you hoping this will bring? Well, duh. I'm hoping this will bring some answers. I'm hoping that maybe they'll find the children and bring them home so that we can have a resolution to this. But apparently not so. He's happy, and what he's hoping for is that this will maybe see things change in terms of social media with the speculation and the theories and the accusations. He just wants this all to go away. Not one word here about a resolution as in finding the children. Not one word here about finding answers. No. I would like to see maybe the social media speculation, theories and accusations, maybe they're not going to stop, but slow down. Not thinking for one even iota of a second about Lily and Jack. This is all about Daniel. And then if there was any doubt before this that this guy was a narcissist, he's just he's solidified it for me. Because at this point, they're getting ridiculous. At this point, we're all wanting answers, and we're getting fed up with your lies, Daniel. We're getting fed up with the constantly changing stories. We're getting fed up with the fake accounts coming into our videos, into our live streams, and basically either trying to spread misinformation or just being extremely rude because we're not believing your BS. We're fed up with the fact that it seems like the only people who care about Lily and Jack are Belinda and Chelsea Gray. Malaya would rather hide than speak out for her babies. And Daniel and all his family and followers, all they want to do is come up with BS stories to try and convince people to not look at them. And you turning around and saying it's ridiculous. Instead of looking at his own behaviour, he's putting it back on all the people who are seeing through all the BS and blaming them. Now, throughout this entire bit, he's just oozing contempt. As he's talking about social media, speculation, theories and accusations, it looks like there is a vein popping in his forehead. And when he finishes saying that, after he says maybe, you get that lift on one side of his face that is a classic Daniel sign of contempt. Seems to be one of the things that he's just not very good at masking. Although, that said, he's probably going to work on that now. But at the same time, while he's been talking about the speculation, theories, accusations, he's been trying to do the arm movement thing. Because people had commented on his lack of arm movements. And he has toned it down. He's not doing the directing air traffic thing there. But what you do see is that at the same time that you get this lift in his cheek, the arm goes down. It's a quite definite movement, and he is punctuating that little smirk on the side of his face. He is showing how much contempt he feels. And you get a repeat again on the word stop when he says they're not going to stop. He's been moving his arm while he's saying they're not going to. And then on stop, the arm drops down and you get the mouth lifting on one side again, showing contempt. Another thing that we see when Daniel is showing contempt is that sideways tilt of his head. Yes, when he's talking, he tends to tilt his head a lot of the time anyway. But what you see here when he's saying that it's getting ridiculous is you get this definite head movement to one side, which when you go back over other interviews, he's doing that. He's showing contempt when he's doing that. Now, sure, if you were an innocent person and you were saying all the right things and the public was coming at you still, then maybe you would feel a little bit of contempt towards the public. A bit of anger over the attitude towards you when you're going through the worst time in your life. But the difference is that when people are innocent, when they are genuinely in this because their child is missing and they want their child to be found, you're going to hear them. And how many cases have we heard this? You hear them saying, I really don't care what people are saying on social media. I'm going to keep coming out. I'm going to keep talking about this case till my child is found, or until the person responsible for what happened to my child is found. There's a difference when you haven't been responsible for what happened. You get this attitude that I don't care what people say. I just want to keep this case out there in the public. Daniel's not doing that. Daniel's doing the poor me, everyone's attacking me, I just want people to stop being nasty to me. Not once has there been any talk of, oh, what do you want from this? Well, I want Jack and Lily to be found. I want answers. I want to bring them home. Nothing at all like that.
So are you thinking that the dogs will go in there and won't find anything?
I know for 100% they won't find anything. I mean, that's probably why they waited this long to do it. It's just to keep the public informed, I guess, that they're hard at work.
So I've spoken at length about this statement in my previous video, and I know a lot of people have spoken at length about this statement. It is not a logical statement, given everything else that he's said. It's not a logical statement, full stop. The only way you could be 100% certain that they're not going to find the children is because you know exactly where the children are. I really get a sense here that he is basically now feeling quite cocky and quite confident. He probably genuinely believes that wherever they've put the children, that the RCMP is not going to find them. I think he believes that the children are never going to be found and that they have outsmarted the RCMP. What that statement says to me is that the focus in terms of looking for these children needs to be not on public land, not on Janie's land, but on land that belongs to either a family member or someone close to the family. These people have worked so hard over the last 4.5, nearly 5 months at controlling the narrative, at redirecting the narrative when people point out the holes in their stories, that to me says that for them, control is number one, which means they wouldn't have taken the risk of having these children somewhere on public land. They would have made sure these children were put somewhere where they have control. And I really hope that the RCMP have got some damn good analysts paying attention to all these interviews, to all these times that they've gone on people's panels and spoken, to all these times that they've said stuff on Facebook, because they're giving themselves away. And yes, I'll say right now, if these children are found, and it is proven that this family has nothing to do with the disappearance of these children, then I will make a very, very public apology. But everything that we've seen from these guys in the last nearly 5 months points directly at them. And it seems that every time they open their mouths, they just make themselves look more guilty.
Do you think it will rule things out?
Yeah, I think we'll rule a lot of things out. Rule out that the RCMP are, working hard, and there's no human remains on the property.
So do you think that he actually meant to say it'll rule out that the RCMP aren't working hard? As in, it will show that the RCMP are working hard? Or was that a bit of leakage there? Does he basically feel a bit cocky here because clearly in his mind the RCMP can't be working that hard if they haven't figured it out by now? And there's no human remains on the property. Those human remains that you're referring to, Daniel, are Lily and Jack Sullivan. Lily was 6, Jack was 4. They were real little people. How cold is it to just talk about, no human remains on the property? That goes beyond distancing language. That shows you how little regard he had for those 2 children. That it can just trip off his tongue like that. And I'm just going to say it here, Chaucer or Belinda, if you are listening, my heart just breaks, and I'm so sorry that you heard that. By wording it that way, by saying there's no human remains on the property, he's showing you that the focus here still is not Jack and Lily. The focus here is about the way people see him. What's important to him in that very moment is to deflect attention away from him. These children lived with him for 2 years. But right now, in this moment, they're not Jack and Lily. They're just human remains. And it's not just distancing himself from Lily and Jack. It's distancing himself from what happened to Lily and Jack. Because if you can just refer to them as human remains, then you're removing the personal side of it. Anyway, I just find that way too disturbing to continue to try and explain it, so I'm not going to continue talking about this part of it. But honestly, it sickens me to hear him speaking that way. Okay, so I was going to tackle the next part of the audio, and make that the finishing point for this video. However, having listened through that part and sat down and made lengthy notes, I found that I needed a break. So I thought, okay, I'll stop, I'll have a break, and then I'll come back and tackle that last bit, and then I can be done for the evening. I went and had my break, and my brain just went, no, that's enough for tonight. So I'm going to leave it here, and I'm going to start with that next part on tomorrow's video. So that will be part 2 of this analysis. So on that note, please keep Belinda, Chelsea, and yes, even Cody in your thoughts right now. Because right now this must be a really, really difficult time for them. And while this is only aimed at a small handful of people, but please keep it respectful in the comments section. So on that note, thanks for listening. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit that like button to get this video out there into the algorithm. And please leave a comment below. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.